Speaking of injuries, we hope none of them are as significant for the Eagles. The four teams competing on Conference Championship Sunday in the injury reports published yesterday from the first full day of practice. When I say full day of practice, I just mean back on the turf, not necessarily pads popping an Oklahoma drill like this is the middle of August. But Jalen Hurts, of course, with the knee injury, limited yesterday, as was Quinyon Mitchell, A.J. Brown, knee rest. Lane Johnson, knee rest. Did not practice. Tight end Dallas Goedert, an outstanding young center in Cam Jurgens. DRS, are you reading between the tea leaves first and foremost for your Birds?
Yeah, and I think they're going to be okay and they're going to play. But the question is, look, you can always re-injure. Quinyon Mitchell's got a shoulder. You take another shoulder shot, that could hurt. Jalen Hurts gets sacked and falls the wrong way on that knee. It can certainly happen. But when you're looking at, like, the bigness of the game, like Hugh Douglas always get a kick out of here, former defensive end for the Philadelphia Eagles. He always used to say, when you're playing big games in the NFL and you need help, you go see Dr. Bombay and he gets you right and you play that football game because it's the end of the season. Maybe you don't do that in weeks 3 or weeks 4. How about this, Ben? You ever see the movie Varsity Blues, getting ready for a big game, Lance Harbor? Come on, man. Stick that needle right into the knee, get out there, and let's perform and let's win a football game. Hey, man, it's what happens. Whether it's movies or real life, man, you got to play. You got to do things that you got to get yourself out there. And sometimes, hey, man, you got to take a little bit extra.
Dr. Donnie, you're really kind of implicating yourself in perhaps your medical practices here on this Thursday on the early line. For the Commanders, by the way, Olamide Zaccheaus limited at practice, DNP, a couple of significant figures for Washington. The former Eagle in Zach Ertz and the linebacker Bobby Wagner and Deron Payne, two consistent defensive players for Washington. But, Donnie, you said before, as we were breaking down the injury reports, unless it is a season-ending injury where you are not going to play again this year, in Conference Championship Sunday or Super Bowl Sunday, we would still expect you to be out there, at least in some capacity, come this weekend.
Yes, correct. And if you're looking at those two teams here, Bobby Wagner's been battling that ankle injury, played last week. Of course, you're going to give him as much time off as you need as a veteran guy to get himself right for Sunday. And the Eagles will do the same thing. Do you think Quinyon Mitchell is doing Oklahoma tackling drills this week in practice to see if his shoulder's okay? No, they're going to rest it and hope he feels good. Same thing with Dallas Goedert, worried about an ankle injury. It's all in the mix. Understand this. When you enter into the regular season week number 1, you know there's going to be attrition through injuries. Just the fact that these guys are banged up and healthy enough to play after 18 weeks and a playoff run, it's amazing that these guys are still getting out of bed on Monday and Tuesday, lucky enough to walk around and trying to get themselves ready for Sunday. So credit these guys. When we talk about modern-day gladiators at the end of a season, these football players are exactly that.
On the AFC side of things, the Chiefs actually pretty healthy. We did see Taylor Rapp, of course, for Buffalo, the safety who made the pick in the opening half of Lamar Jackson, exit the game with what appeared to be a significant hip injury. I would not be surprised, of course, if he does not play on Sunday in KC. Let's get you ready for Conference Championship Weekend in the National Football League as we win with Zinn. Mark Zinno here for a third consecutive segment. Now to preview Conference Title Sunday around the NFL. Zinno, we go in reverse order. We start with the AFC Championship game inside Arrowhead. Two very familiar foes in the postseason. For the fourth time in the last 5 years, it's the Chiefs and the Bills meeting in the playoffs. For the second time in that 5-year window in an AFC Championship game in Arrowhead, and you see 34 cents of difference, Mark, in terms of that money line price. Total stands at 47.5. Just how competitive do you expect Sunday night's game in the AFC Championship to actually be?
The Bills are winning this game. I don't need to say it anymore. The Bills are winning this game. There's not a doubt in my mind. I mean, listen, I'll be chalky as hell, and I'll still tease the Bills, and I'll tease them with the Eagles down to a pick 'em. Fine. I don't care. The Bills are winning this game. Take them on the money line. Take the 1.5. The Bills are winning this game. There is just not – here is the very simple formula for Buffalo, okay? Challenge this passing offense of the Chiefs to go ahead and beat you. That's it. I mean, if you look at the matchup earlier between these two teams, the Bills held the Kansas City Chiefs under 100 rushing yards and barely 200 passing yards. And here's the thing, and I kept saying this all week long, and I've said this all season long, that Josh Allen has to overcome two things in every single game. The team that he's playing and his head coach, because Sean McDermott is the liability here. But I would tell Sean McDermott, never pass up an opportunity at points in this game. Because in reality, guess what? If you get to 24, you know what the Chiefs can't do? Score more than that. They've told you that all season long. Not without help. If you don't beat yourself and you get to 24, the Chiefs cannot win this game because they can't score more than that. That's the reality of this Chiefs offense at this point in time. So Buffalo's winning this game. They will finally slay the dragon, and they will be heading to New Orleans in the Super Bowl.
I will be a Buffalo fan this weekend in this football game. I just don't know if I can bring myself to bet the Buffalo Bills. Hey, Bills getting 6.5, 7.5. We're all in there. Chiefs just to win the game. That's the tough part. And also at the FanDuel Sportsbook, you click that little tab that says statistics. 60% of the spread bets coming in right now on the Buffalo Bills. Let's turn our attention to Philadelphia, where 70% of the tickets are going in on the Washington Commanders. That line opened up at 4.5 at FanDuel. We now see 6.5 at FanDuel in Philadelphia. And by the way, the thing that I do like too, Mark, we're not worried about weather conditions in either city. How are we feeling about this Commanders-Eagles game on Sunday?
This brings us to the weekly part of our segment where something comes out of my mouth and Ben Stevens' eyes rolls back, his head tilts, and he looks quizzically at the camera because I'm
already done that, by the way.
I know we already did when I said Notre Dame wouldn't have gotten there with a path. But here we go for take two. I'm going to say something that's going to bother many people. The Washington Commanders didn't win last week. The Detroit Lions lost. Okay? That's what this.
Come on. I like this. I like the start here.
The Commanders did not win. The Lions gave the game away with 5 turnovers. And notably, the game turned on one play. The sack fumble, instead of it being 14-3, they were down 10-7, and they were chasing the rest of the way. I say that to say they're not in the same category as this Eagles team. I've seen the Commanders step up in class all year long, and I've seen them come up short. The only reason the Commanders beat the Eagles earlier this year in Washington was because Jalen Hurts went out of the game in the first quarter with a concussion, and some guy who was imitating the position of quarterback named Kenny Pickett played the rest of that game. So that's not happening here. Washington will not have an answer for Saquon Barkley. I would lay the 6.5 with Philadelphia. They're not walking into Lincoln Financial and being competitive in this game. Dan Quinn's done a hell of a job, and Jane Daniels is a heck of a quarterback. But let's be real about what this is. There's a reason why only 1 or 2 rookies have ever made it to a conference championship game and never made it to a Super Bowl, because you can't run into luck that many times in a row. As long as Philadelphia doesn't beat themselves, they should win this thing handily.
So it sounds like to me that Mark Zinno's Super Bowl prediction in New Orleans is the Eagles and the Bills. So, Zinno, as we enter Conference Championship Sunday, looking at where those Super Bowl 59 odds are right now, who would you like to wager on?
Well, again, I mean, my heart is with Buffalo, and so will my money also be there. Look, I hope Washington does upset Philadelphia, so Buffalo has an easier chance at winning a title. Like that, I actually do hope happens, but it's not going to. So, look, I mean, I've backed the Bills all year long. I'm not walking off of them now. My absolute nightmare is an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl. If I have to watch that again, there would be blood splatter of my own somewhere along the line, because I would have to root for Philadelphia harder than I've ever rooted in my life. Beautiful. And I'm not doing that again. So let's go.
Mark, you have time to appear tomorrow on a Football Friday. With that breakdown, I think we might need you for a couple segments more just to get ready for the game Sunday. I think so. I think I'm going to book you tomorrow myself. I like this. We'll be right back. I think we'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back.
Let's get you ready for Conference Championship Weekend in the National Football League. We will start with the marquee matchup on Sunday evening inside Arrowhead Stadium between the Chiefs and the Bills. Donnie, of course, we have made note of the many times these two teams have faced off against one another in the last 5 NFL seasons, here in similar spots in playoff football. 2020 AFC Championship game in Arrowhead. 2021 divisional round in Arrowhead. Last year in the divisional round in Western New York, and now back inside Arrowhead Stadium in the AFC Championship game for the 2024 campaign. And let's go right to the numbers. 34 cents of difference. That is it on the money line for KC minus 126. The Bills a very slight dog in Kansas City plus 108. Donnie, it's almost a similar question to Buffalo getting ready to host its own divisional round matchup last weekend against Baltimore. At this stage, I asked you, do you agree with the odds, or do you give the edge to the other side? When you look at how close the numbers are on the money line, who gets the edge in your mind entering the AFC title game?
It's simple for me, and I understand this. We just had Mark Zinno on. I'm saying to myself, like, I am actually rooting for the Buffalo Bills, not because it's saying, okay, I think the Eagles match up better with the Bills or Kansas City, but just from a fan perspective and a content perspective. We do a lot of Super Bowls around here, and it's just boring talking about the same things and the same matchups, and one team always gets there. The Buffalo Bills are a fun story. There'd be nothing better than the Buffalo Bills going into Kansas City and vanquishing those playoff demons and moving on to a Super Bowl, something we haven't seen for the Buffalo Bills since the early 1990s. When they lost 4 straight Super Bowls. It's a great fan base. They'll be passionate. They'll show out in New Orleans, no doubt about it. But from a money perspective, I got to be honest. Like, I'm surprised that 70% of the betting public, at least at the FanDuel Sportsbook, is lining up ticket-wise just to take the Buffalo Bills. We're not knocking the Bills, Ben. We're not saying they don't deserve to be. They absolutely do. They beat one of the most talented teams in football last week and moved on to face the Kansas City Chiefs. But it once again gets down to this compelling notion. We're not looking at the Chiefs going like, ooh, I wonder if that ankle is healthy from Mahomes. He's 100% healthy. You gave Travis Kelce a couple weeks off. He looks rejuvenated, as good as ever, catching the football and run after the catch. You take a look at the offensive line that's shifting around players from guard to tackle, and it's worked out, and a defense that's one of the best in the NFL with a great defensive coordinator. And then the other opportunity as well, you can't take Kansas City, Ben, at 8.5 points at home. You know they're probably going to win but not cover. And then you go, wait a second. You're just asking Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs to win a football game by a field goal at home, and you move on and cash a ticket? How do you actually pass that up based on what we've seen?
Yeah. Donnie, I think it's a great point, right? 0-6 now officially against the number, closing as a 9.5-point favorite against Houston last weekend as a touchdown favorite or greater. You're not asking Kansas City to win by a touchdown. Frankly, the best bet, if you're going to approach the Chiefs, is just eat a little bit of chalk on -126 on the money line and simply ask KC to win an AFC championship game. Something they have done 4 times in the last 6 years. Something Buffalo has not with Josh Allen under center in the direct head-to-head matchup against Kansas City. We have stressed it before, but it does bear repeating. This will be the 4th matchup in the last 5 years in the postseason. We have seen some great games between these two, but the most lopsided was the 2020 AFC Championship game. Both teams are widely different. Both quarterbacks have experienced so much since then, but it was a 38-24 win for KC. In fact, not only are the Chiefs perfect, 3-0 straight up against Buffalo in the postseason, they are also perfect against the number. Now let's talk about that total, DRS, 47.5. Knowing what we have seen out of Kansas City this year, natural thought would be, hey, the Chiefs are even going to win this football game by a point. They probably make it a little bit uglier. It's probably not the shootout we saw between these two in the divisional round back in the 2021 NFL postseason. Kansas City probably wins this game 21-17 and really grinds it out on the defensive side of the football. Just how much scoring do you anticipate, DRS, for Sunday night?
I do think we get scoring here, because the one thing that we have to understand is Kansas City will be happy to replicate the way you want to play and beat you doing that. You want to get high scoring, Kansas City can score points. But theoretically, say, well, they didn't have to do that much this year because their defense has been so good. And I say this, like, if Buffalo can get out to a lead in Kansas City, is anybody turning the TV off if Buffalo is down, or excuse me, if Kansas City is down 17-7 at the break? Oh, they can't come back for that. Like, no, we've seen times in the past, particularly as I talked about that Houston Texans game earlier in the playoffs a couple years ago, where they were down 3 touchdowns in the first half and had to lead by the half. It's what they do. They're talented enough to come back. But having said that, Buffalo isn't that team where you're going to just say coming into it, we're going to hold down that offense. We're going to play great defense, get first downs, eat the clock, and make the plays that we need to. Because dating back to the Jets game early in the season, they scored 23 points. After that, 34, 31, 30, 30, 30, 35, 42, 48, 24, and 40, and you remove the final game against the Patriots where they scored 16 points with their backups. So if you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, you see those team totals, I find it very difficult to say to myself that the Buffalo Bills 23.5, whether they win or lose, they're probably going to cross that number. They're talented. They don't care what defense you're playing. Josh can get after it in the air, on the ground. They have a talented running back that can hit home runs, and they have opportunistic wide receivers and a solid set of tight ends. So when we're looking at points, as I said earlier in the week, I want to believe this game goes over, because I don't think the MO for the Buffalo Bills is let's just keep them hanging around at this point. must stay aggressive, but they're known,
sure.
Ben, for scoring mid-20s and higher every single game. What's to be the determination where they can't do that in this game? We should get points.
And something says to me, Donnie, right? The Chiefs this year have not been overly impressive. They have not been dominant offensively. Even last week in the victory against the Texans, it wasn't crisp on the offensive side outside of Mahomes, really just to Travis Kelce. I think KC answers the bell offensively, and I think Patrick Mahomes does as well. 249.5 is the passing yards prop for Mahomes. Of course, this will be the 7th consecutive year that Kansas City has played in an AFC championship game. In the previous 6, last year was his lowest passing total, 241. It was also the only year, Donnie, he did not throw for at least 294 yards in multiple passing scores. The best bet that I have made already for the AFC championship game is Mahomes over 249.5. I think he matches the occasion and the atmosphere on Sunday night in Arrowhead. A closing thought on the AFC championship game before we get to Philadelphia and the NFC title game next. We preview Conference Championship Sunday. One final thought on the quarterback comparison that will have all the eyes, DRS, in Arrowhead. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. The Bills, Josh Allen. I mentioned I'm going over 249.5 for Mahomes' passing yards prop. I know it has not been illustrious at times this season offensively for KC. This, the most significant stage, and until I see it happen, I'm not believing Mahomes bows out just yet. But Josh Allen, in the prior 3 matchups against KC in their playoff lives together, has gone well over that rushing yards prop, at least 68 yards, utilizing his legs on the ground in the 3 previous tilts against Kansas City.
Yeah, no, and it's a good look there because Patrick Mahomes obviously will be a catalyst. That running game, not as explosive as we saw in the past. Like when Isaiah Pacheco first hit the ground running for Kansas City, wow, found their guy that can be a short yardage guy, can break long runs. Those injuries have really slowed him down. So when looking at the touchdown market, throwing over 1.5 makes sense for Mahomes. But also keep in mind, the touchdown market combined for this game, you get 47.5 points. So you just sound like, ooh, there's going to be a lot of high-priced guys if you wanted them to just find pay dirt on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Yesterday, Josh Allen was actually a plus 100 for an anytime touchdown. Love that. Today, he's minus 105, but he's the highest juice player in this game at minus 105 for a total near 50 points. You're going to be able to find some value going down that board. Because if we're expecting, let's just say, 3 touchdowns each, that's 6 total touchdowns, and the highest price on the board is minus 105, there could be some good value on that for Sunday.
2 rushing touchdowns for Josh against Baltimore. Last weekend, 2 rushing touchdowns for Josh last year in a matchup in the divisional round against Kansas City. 60% of the money, or 60% of the bets on the spread, backing Buffalo right now. But basically, of course, as we know, it is near a pick'em. 70% of the bets on the spread for the NFC Championship game, first up on Sunday on Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. So tell me, DRS, when the line opened on Sunday evening at 4.5 in favor of the Birds, and we're getting 70% of the action on Washington, why is this line now near a touchdown in favor of Philadelphia?
Yeah, it's pretty wild the way you look at it because the Eagles are a good ball club. They didn't wind up in this position by getting lucky late in the season. Like, they've been very good. The number 1 overall defense in the NFL. You take a look at Jalen Hurts. Has been underwhelming in the passing game, yes, but he's learned not to turn the football over. And every time you hand off, it feels like every 4 carries is a home run hit by running back Saquon Barkley. But the one thing I do understand about handicapping and gambling is there's odds makers and there's the betting public. Because opening that line at 4.5, I thought showed a lot of respect for Washington. And the thought process behind that was maybe we're not going to get a healthy enough Jalen Hurts to play next week to be effective. As you still see at the FanDuel Sportsbook, 70% of the tickets still coming in on the Washington Commanders. And that line moves up 2 full points, which should give you pause if you're a Washington backer. Now, me, being around the block, that is an Eagles line, no doubt about it. Am I running to the window to take the 6.5 today as I'm so excited to do that? Not necessarily, but understand the products of their environment. Everybody expected a great punch from the Green Bay Packers. Eagles handled their business. And outside of a collapse over the final 2 minutes to get almost 2 touchdowns for the Rams, the Eagles were double digits there for the primarily parts of that second half. And still, they were favored by 6.5, and pushed and or covered, depending on when you got those numbers earlier in the week.
Right.
So the Eagles are expected to win. They're the better football team. But again, I'm not overly excited at saying, yes, let me lay close to a touchdown in this game.
Same exact total, DRS, for our two championship matchups, 47 and a hook for both, including here, of course, at the link. How much scoring do we see on Sunday in Philly?
47 and a half. You should say it's going over. Washington's offense has been red hot. They can get after it. But the one thing we understand, 5 turnovers helped a lot of points being gained for Washington this past weekend. The Eagles don't turn the football over. It's going to be much harder to do that. So I'm going to have a propensity in this one to say I probably lean towards under 47 and a half because I think that clock is going to be churning, and Saquon Barkley and Eagles offensive line, outside of hitting 70-yard home runs, they should rule the day here. If you're looking at 25-plus carries for Saquon Barkley and he's just doing his average, let's just say 5 yards per carry, that's going to be a lot of first downs and a lot of time off that clock, Ben.
Donnie, as we always say, right, the natural handicapping approach to a big favorite, in this case in a conference championship game, laying near a touchdown, you need points available. You need scoring to be higher. If Philly is going to win by a touchdown, you should see as many points as possible. But I actually think it's the opposite. If the Birds handle this game, they handle Jaden Daniels and that Commanders offense, and it stays under the number of 47 and a hook. We'll dive deeper into those quarterback numbers from the prop perspective, getting you ready for conference championship weekend with TV Tom Vecchio up next. No one better than to set the stage for conference championship Sunday in the NFL from that prop perspective than TV Tom Vecchio of SportsGrid, live right here on SportsGrid on this Thursday on the early line. Still early in the week, Tom, before a ton of the betting public will come in and fluctuate these numbers that we will see. So we love the early approach to what we have from the prop perspective for conference championship weekend. Let's dive right in.
Yeah, let's get to it. We have a ton to get through. Obviously, I was here on here on Tuesday, actually, not Monday. Tuesday, Ben, you weren't here, and we were talking through some of those player props. Some of those lines have already moved. So it's obviously, like you said, it's good to be on things early. And, it's also important to note how these teams are going to play, because I think I have a very specific approach for how I think Buffalo will try and come away with this win, and it's probably not turning this game into a shootout.
Which is interesting, Tom, because when you look at the numbers for that AFC Championship game in Arrowhead, it is basically a pick'em, about 34 cents of difference on the money line and a total of 47 and a half. So you see those numbers in Buffalo trying to exercise the demon of their playoff nemesis being the Chiefs at this time of year. How do you expect the game to look if the Bills are hunting that upset?
I'm feeling like a 23-20 kind of game, 24-23. I think we're going to be super close to the number. A 23-20 final could be a Mahomes drive that leads them to kicking a field goal to win the game and break the tie. Ultimately, how do the Bills prevent that? Because we always have this conversation about our team's playing to win. Are they playing not to lose? The Bills don't want to put the ball in Mahomes' hands as often as possible. And how do you do that? I honestly think it's through the running game. And, Josh Allen was okay last week. Let's just call it what it was. So I think the three-headed backfield that they have with Cook, Johnson, and Ray Davis for the Bills, I think they're all going to see a good amount of work. So I'm not sure I love Cook to have a massive game on the ground. I actually think it's going to be a very balanced backfield. And keeping the ball out of Mahomes' hand late is how the Bills will come away with the victory. That's if I don't have a strong take either side. Anyone who says that they have a strong take either side is lying to themselves and lying to you guys. I think we're in for a one-possession game, and it's going to be determined in the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And if the Bills were to come away with the win, it's keeping the ball out of Mahomes' hands with the running game.
Exactly. Better be taking knees at the end of the football game, not giving 16 seconds or so back over to the Chiefs to try to beat you or send you into overtime. Let's take a look at that quarterback matchup. None really better. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen squared up here. The total's coming in on Patrick Mahomes at 249.5 and Josh Allen at 230.5 for his passing yards. And then the touchdown props, wildly different here. To throw 2 touchdowns for Mahomes, that's a minus 154 price. For Josh Allen, it's plus 136. How are we playing the quarterbacks on Sunday, Tom?
I think it's reasonable to play Mahomes under 36.5 passing attempts. I specifically like that. I also don't mind Mahomes over on the rushing, as he apparently rushes every single playoff game he's ever been in, constantly scrambling and getting those yards. Allen is tough. It is really tough considering, last week failing to get to 150 combined yards. I don't know how we look to 230 passing yards alone. And also, if you were to get 230 passing yards, probably means that they're playing from behind. And at that point, the Chiefs' money line would probably be the best bet. If he has to push for 250 passing yards, things probably didn't go the way the Bills would want things to go. Like the script got out of control, and we're looking back at that overtime game they had a couple of years ago where it's like 40-35, whatever the final score was for that thing, where they're both throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns. I don't think the Bills want to have Josh Allen throwing the ball for 250 yards. It's not to say that he can't do it. I just don't think that's the game plan for this week.
Not a great yardage output for Josh Allen against Baltimore, but did find pay dirt twice. Now let's go to the NFC Championship game. Same total as the AFC title game at 47.5, but a very different spread. It's very close. For the AFC Championship, it's nearly a touchdown now in favor of Philadelphia. Tom, in terms of the numbers dictating the game flow of what we are going to see at Lincoln Financial Field, how does this game differ in your mind?
Not only the game flow, but I have concerns with Brian Robinson for Washington. He's been okay, like this year, and especially as of late. I know he broke off a couple of big runs last week, but he was not good versus Tampa on the ground. So if he's been okay, and I just personally just don't have a lot of confidence in him, Austin Eckler's continuing to get involved, and they're going to be playing from behind. What does that turn to for Washington? It's probably turning to Washington moving the ball effectively through the air, whether it's Terry McLaurin, whether it's De'Ami Brown, but ultimately that comes down to Daniels, because we know that he's going to be spreading it around. Like Zach Ertz is, being involved, especially the second half of the season to close the year. He was very good. So I think turning to Jaden Daniels over 21.5 completions is my favorite bet for probably this entire weekend. This is what they've done the entire season. Cliff Kingsbury in the offense, move the ball effectively. He has to scramble the pocket, whatever it might be, get completions, pick up first downs, limit mistakes for Daniels. He's been awesome at this year. The completion percentage was through the roof, especially for the first portion of the season. So picking up completions and effectively moving the ball down the field, whether it turns into points and they go for it on 4th down, they don't convert, wherever it might be. But picking up first downs and sustaining drives will be the winning recipe. If the Commanders keep it close, I don't think they win this game, but they will keep it at least somewhat close.
All right, looks like we have to book Tom Vecchio again for tomorrow's Football Friday because apparently he's on the right side here of this Philadelphia Eagles game. But Sundays are for Saquon. Some of these numbers, Tom, outrageous it feels like. You look at the carries prop. In modern-day NFL, 24.5. You take a look at the rushing prop, which at FanDuel is 125.5. Other outlets, Tom, closer to 130. You look at the receiving yards, 12.5. You're looking for probably just one reception. But the touchdown prop, minus 250 as well. How do you approach taking Saquon Barkley this weekend, or is it just not enough value left in some of these numbers?
There's probably not a lot of value left in a lot of these numbers, but there's one spot to go, and it wasn't listed there, and it's going to be Saquon over longest rushing attempt, which I believe is 21.5 or 20.5, 22.5. It's somewhere around there. Last week it was 19.5. I expected it to move up. It is. And how many times have we said it? Donnie, obviously, Kevin always talking about it, the home run potential from Saquon. That's what we see literally every week. And it's not just like, he breaks off like a 25-yard carry or a 30-yard carry. It's like 60 or 70 yards. So if you don't want to play the 130 rushing yards, I get it. You don't want to play the combined, I get it, the carries. The over longest rush, he can do that at any time.
And you would think if he gets close to $125 on the ground, there will be a bunch, if not at least one, big plays running the football. Let's talk about Jaden Daniels, who you mentioned your favorite bet, over 21.5 completions, and Jalen Hurts. I do want to focus on the Birds QB, of course, dealing with the ailing and injured left knee. And Vecchio, despite his team being nearly a touchdown favorite to win a conference championship and appear in a second Super Bowl in the last 3 years, those numbers on Jalen Hurts, more than likely because of the injury issue, are drastically low. How will you approach betting Jalen Hurts entering Sunday, or do you wait until we get to kick Sunday to see exactly how he looks in the game?
There's only one spot that I would go with Hurts this week, and this is just like if you want to have action on Hurts, whatever it might be. I understand like alting him down and putting him into some SGP, which I'm not super fond of, but I think it has to be passing touchdowns because I'm not laying the juice for Saquon. I do expect the Eagles to win and score points. If he has this knee issue, will there be a few lesser chances for him to have a tush push. They're just not going to put him in that position. And then it'll just be a passing touchdown here or there. So the passing touchdown prop for Hurts may be the best way to go. Okay, I think the Eagles win. I maybe don't want to lay 6.5 points, and I'm not going to lay the juice with Saquon, but we know that Hurts can have the passing touchdowns to a Goddard, to an A.J. Brown.
So those are the quarterback comparisons. And Tom, let's make sure before we send you off into the weekend here on the early line, we get all of those top props. Run through them quickly if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, Keon Coleman, just don't expect him to play a huge role for the Bills in the passing game. Under 23.5 receiving yards. That line has moved to 20. Marquise Brown, under 3.5 receptions. He's not going to have, he needs to have at least 6 targets, 7 targets to get to 4, which I don't expect to happen, just given the snap count that he has an overall target share. And then turning to Daniels, I do think he will be in for a solid game. The rush can certainly be there if they are playing from high. Yeah. Also for tonight on the ice, Andrei Svechnikov for the Carolina Hurricanes, over 2.5 shots on goal, leads the team with 133. Going up against the Blue Jackets on the second night of the back-to-back since the start of January. The Canes lead the league in total shot attempts, and the Blue Jackets are the 6th most shot attempts allowed per 6 minutes in 5v5 situations. And in NBA, PJ Washington over 14.5 points.
The jack of all trades, the prop perspective with TV, Tom Vecchio. None better. Tom, thank you so much. More on the early line next.